Hi, and this is Sam from BoredAtWork.com, and today we're looking at the HTC Evo 4G LTE from Sprint. This is another one of Sprint's 4G LTE offerings, although Sprint has still not gone live with its 4G LTE service across metropolitan areas, or actually anywhere at all. So what we're looking at here is HTC's latest and greatest for Sprint. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to give you a few specs about the phone. Now, this is obviously on Sprint's LTE 4G LTE network, and is 3G CDMA network. Now, dimension-wise, we have 5.31 inches by, let's say, 2.72 inches, and the thickness is about 0.35 inches. Now, the display itself is a 4.7 inch 1280 by 720 display, I would say. So this is actually obviously HD. Now, it uses IPS technology, that's the in-plane switching, and it's a capacitive touchscreen. Now, the weight of the phone itself is only 4.73 ounces, and it's very light. However, it's not too light to make the phone feel, flimsy in any way. The processor in this device is actually a 1.5 gigahertz 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon from Qualcomm, and it has about 1 gigabyte of RAM, 16 gigabytes of onboard storage, and it has an additional micro SDHC capable slot, so that should give you an additional 32 gigabytes of storage space. Now, the camera's on here, we're going to get to it in a second, and the battery we're going to get to in a second. But nonetheless, I'll still say the battery is about 2,000 milliamps that you're going to be getting in here. Now, let's take a look at exactly the physical features of the phone. First things first, you have the speaker up on the top of the phone. That's just looking at the front panel. Up on the top of the speaker, and at the bottom you can see the three standards Android 4.0 device buttons. Now, these are touch sensitive buttons. Now, on the top of the phone you have your 3.5mm jack, and you have your power switch, which I'm going to switch on right now. Now, as that's loading up, we're going to take a look at the right side of the phone. The right side of the phone you might not notice, but it does have the rockers, the up and down, the volume up and down rocker. It has a dedicated camera button, which we'll get to later. And then now to the back of the phone. The back of the phone is actually divided into two kind of little textures, or two different sections. Now, this separator right here is actually the kickstand for the phone, which enables you to have the phone stand both this way as well as this way, which is actually a pretty good innovation from HTC. Now, the camera on the back of the phone is an 8.0 megapixel camera, along with its flash. The one thing you'll notice about the camera is that the camera is not quite flush with the rest of the phone. HTC had decided to have a raised camera. I don't know why that decision was made. However, it doesn't stop the ergonomic look and feel of the phone. You can slide it in your pocket effortlessly, and without even feeling the raised bump over there. Now, we'll switch to the left side of the phone. The left side of the phone only has one input here, one input button, or one connector, and that is the micro USB connector, which also doubles as your charger port. Now, the bottom of the phone basically has your mic and nothing else. So let's take a look at what HTC has done here. Oh, also to mention, the front-facing camera is actually a 1.3 megapixel camera, which is an upgrade from a VGA camera, which you will find on other other devices that are out there in the market right now. I believe the Galaxy S2 has a VGA front-facing camera. Now, this phone has a 1.5 dual-core, 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Qualcomm processor, or Snapdragon processor, and you can actually tell by how fluid the device actually works that this is taking full advantage of that 1.5 gigahertz. Now, I'm going to open up a few apps so we could test the multitasking. And I'm going to open up Maps. Now, multitasking, and you can see how fluid it is when going from window to window on the multitask pane. Now, first thing you'll notice about this phone, although it's an Android 4.0 device, you do see that it's heavily skinned with HTC's Sense. Now, this is both good and bad. The good side of it is if you've used a Sense phone before, you're going to be very familiar with exactly how the phone works. You're not going to be too intimidated by the changes that Google has made going from gingerbread to ice cream sandwich. However, the bad side of it is Google did make a lot of graphical user interface changes, so GUI changes to the Android operating system, which are actually pretty beautiful and very intuitive. Now, HTC Sense being skinned on this device, being skinned over the Android operating system on this device, means that you miss out on all these new features of Android, meaning that you basically can't drop this phone and pick up a whole nother Android phone and actually get the same Android experience. This takes away from the ice cream sandwich experience. Well, now let's take a look at one other thing about this phone, one other pseudo complaints I might have about this phone. Now we'll take let's go to Wallet. The Google Wallet is actually comes pre-installed on this device. However, when you actually open up the Google Wallet, you're told that it's not available on your service or your phone. I find that a little bit of I have a little bit of an issue with that. If you're going to pre-install something on a phone, just make sure that it actually works, as expected. It's kind of like a bait and switch over there. Now, I personally like getting devices that take use of everything in a device. And now, if this device has an NFC chip and is capable of having Google Wallet on it, then Google Wallet should be activated on it, especially if it's pre-installed. That's just a little pet peeve of mine. Now, battery-wise, that 200 milliamp battery is really going to take you through the whole day, or most of the day. So, although on this device you cannot change the battery and put in a second battery or put in a high-capacity battery, the 2000 milliamp battery should actually serve you for most of your daily use. Now, to open up the back of the phone, I guess you just pop that out. As I mentioned, you cannot switch out the battery. That's something that HTC decided to do on this phone. It actually integrated the battery into the overall design of the device. Now, what you can switch out is your micro SD slot, which would actually take anywhere from we should actually take any SD card up to 32 gigabytes, which is significant enough. So I'll put that all the way back. I'll put that back in here. Close that up. Now, this phone is basically being built as a 4G phone, which is a 4G LTE phone, which for Sprint comes with a little bit of a caveat in that Sprint hasn't launched its 4G LTE service yet. So you really are stuck with 3G service on this phone. So far, the call quality on this phone hasn't been too bad. I've had a few dropped calls here. I've had maybe one or two dropped calls. I shouldn't say just a few, maybe one or two. And I've had maybe only one call so far that was actually really horrible. That being the case, I actually chuck that more to the fact that right now, Sprint is still using its 3G service for both data and voice, and so I might be getting a little bit of connectivity drop off here and there. However, when the 4G LTE is turned on, the plan is to use the 4G LTE service strictly for your data and to use the 3G switch for your voice. Now, if that does happen, I expect that the call qualities will improve as well as the data throughput. So basically, this phone is a 4G phone, but currently running on 3G, and it's one of the most beautiful phones, or should I say, it's in my opinion, the most beautiful phone I have seen on the Sprint network thus far. Now, you do have, I should mention this because everyone I've showed this phone to has mentioned it to me. You do have this metallic band around the phone, which kind of, brings up the whole comparison with the iPhone 4. Personally, my feeling is if you're going to steal something, you steal from the best. And Apple right now is a market leader. Overall, this is a very beautiful phone. This is a useful phone. This is a very fast phone, and the screen is beautiful. I have no complaints about this phone really, apart from what I've already mentioned, which are really unsubstantial. Now, I would say if you're looking for a more than average, or better than average 4G phone that's basically current generation and probably future proof, I would say go with this phone. Now, this phone is definitely going to hold you over until Sprint turns its 4G LTE service on. So to me, that's a big plus on this phone's side. Now, another big plus is the camera. Now, what this phone has done with the dedicated camera, dedicated camera button, is actually take a feature of Android 4.0, which is an amazing burst camera feature, and actually made it very useful and very accessible. So how you do that is you push on the dedicated camera button until you feel the vibration, and it automatically opens up the camera. Now I'm just going to click on that button and let it go, and as you can hear, that's a burst feature from Android 4.0 cameras. And right away I'm taking about maybe 20 photos, and it asks me to basically pick the best shot. So I'm just going to say, you know what, save only the best shot, and only saves that best shot, and I move on. Now, I am really impressed with this phone, and I can definitely say when I give it back, or when I send it back after this review, I am really going to miss the phone. It's one of the first Android 4.0 devices that I've actually used for any extended amount of time. It actually does everything I would expect a cell phone to do pretty well. It integrates Facebook, it integrates Google Voice, and it integrates all the apps I use on a daily basis pretty well. It's very fluid. You don't have any hiccups with it. And the only one thing I noticed on the app side is maybe there are a few apps out there which are not quite updated for Android 4.0, so I had a few crashes here and there. But overall, this is an amazing phone, and I would say if you're going to consider getting a new phone or upgrading to a new phone in the near future, this should definitely be on your list. Well, have a nice day, and this has been Sam from BoardOfWork.com.